Minasaito, arigato, kawaii. Kawaii. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Utanium. I'm Connell. Now real quick, if you're not subscribed, which 63% of you aren't, go ahead and do that and leave a like. If you don't like the video, you can always, dial that bad boy back, spin it around, tell me no. So Logan Paul, interesting character. He's went through serious highs and serious lows, and to be honest, his journey through YouTube and just as a person, it's a really good outline for a character redemption arc in an anime, which is going to be sort of the format that we're going for in this video. He sort of resembles, I was going to say Vegeta, because we've got KSI's Goku, and it all sort of lines up quite well. You got Jake Paul as, I don't know, fucking Nappa or someone. Someone who dies early. Raditz, maybe? Or is Raditz Deji? I think Raditz is Deji. So yes, we're going to look at the very quick rise, very sharp fall, and then gradual rise back up to being a decent bloke, I suppose. Our main players through this story are Big Man Mike, Logan Paul of course himself, True Geordie was one that I didn't think would be as prominently featured in the video, but after doing a bit of research, he's kind of necessary for me to give a rough statistic of growth, I suppose. And Jake Paul, KSI's in there a lot, but as a person, not really. So we have our main players, we have our stage, and we have really the format of the video. So without further ado, let's get into it. So where do we start? Very, very quick, brief rundown as to who Logan Paul is. He got his start on Vine, was very, very successful on the platform. His style of humour just fit that 7-second and later 13-second format to a T. And when that died and eventually fizzled out, crumbled and faded, big man Nick Crompton stepped in. Nick Crompton being the most baffling choice for a manager that you could ever possibly take. But he did his job, and he did his job well, because as Jake Paul said, 5 million in 6 months, never done before. So his rapid rise through YouTube, it was taken notice of. He was very popular with a very specific age demographic at the time, that being children. So he got himself stuck in this cycle, doing something outlandish and then having to step it up because he was doing daily vlogs. He didn't get the breathing room between these crazy events, and his child fan base just wouldn't have it any other way. With his quick rise was kind of when people immediately started just to hate the guy, to be honest. I mean, he's shelling out overpriced merch to children, which, still sort of happens, but they're a bit more self-aware about it now. This was just shameless. Get your parents to buy this. Wasn't good. So on the trajectory he was going, with that stepping up the game every time, we were bound to reach an eventuality at some point. If he didn't do the Forest video, then it would have been something else equally bad. And that leads us on very nicely into our next topic, the Forest. So that video as a whole catches a lot of flack, and rightfully so. At any point during the production process for that, in the brainstorming stage for what they would do in Japan, they already fell over at the first hurdle. People hated that video for more than just what happened in the forest. You had basically the complete disrespect for Japanese culture the entire way through, which just culminated very nicely, nicely being a very poor choice of words, at the big moment where he films the body and his reaction doesn't help things whatsoever. So once this was recorded, realistically, anyone on his team, his editing team specifically, and his manager, should have looked at that and went, see that bit with the body? Maybe don't include that. Or even better yet, everything in that vlog, just don't upload it. Realistically, if he had have made a quick 3-minute video saying, hey yo, we found a body, we can't upload any of the footage from that day, he'd have been fine. But, and this is very important, this had to happen for us to get the, I want to say, quite likeable version of Logan today, because it crashed that boy back to reality in a very, very hard way. I think it's very safe to have given him the title at the time, the most hated man on the internet. And realistically, if we're going by the anime approach, it does sort of give off the same vibes as when Vegeta lost to Goku the first time, and it snaps him back to reality, sort of starts that sort of growth process. But again, Vegeta and Goku aren't really the best comparisons I can make. The best comparison I can make to Logan's story is Asylum Voice, which is a story about a kid who bullies a deaf girl, rightfully gets shunned for it, and spends basically the rest of his childhood for the teenage years making up for that mistake. Guy learns sign language and does basically everything he can to right the wrong that he made in the past. Very, very touching story. It's a very moving story. I like it very personally because my granny's deaf, so, you know, we got that little personal touch to things. But Logan's story does sort of very nicely go in the same way as both Vegeta and the main character of Asylum Voice, whose name is completely eluding me but will be on screen right now. And we'll be touching on, you know, what story beats he's hitting, but I don't want to compare it too much to anything that exists, because realistically I think Logan's story is a better template for a redemption arc than that of any character in fiction. I mean, you couldn't write the redemption arc that Logan Paul went through. And it all starts with True Geordie. True Geordie made probably one of the most powerful videos I've ever seen. Well, at least with the most real emotion, that is. I mean, he had more reason than any creator, or at least any creator that spoke about it, to have the reaction that he did, what with him finding someone close to him in exactly the same position. So I would say at this point, Brian is Logan's #1 hater at this point, which is good, rightfully so. So what happens when you're one of the biggest creators on the platform and you hit rock bottom in such a huge way? You try and amend that wrong. But the thing is, he went about it the wrong way at the start, which was very publicly and immediately backing charities that had a lot to do with the video he made. Now, at the time, I'm pretty sure everyone, including myself, just thought, PR stunt. He's doing this to get back on track and then it'll be same old, same old. And the thing is, Logan figured this out too, and I'm almost certain, based on the conversation he had with True Geordie later, that it wasn't doing anything to amend the guilt that he felt about it. So he started doing things behind the scenes, which didn't pay off at the time, but in the long run, turned out to be a much better decision. So we cut now to the JJ and Logan fight, or the first one, the PR tour, right up, where Brian and Logan have their first proper confrontation. Now, the conversation between the two of them really was, I think, what sparked the turnaround for people's opinions on Logan. He gave pretty good insight into why he reacted the way he did, and some stuff that he had been doing to make up for it for himself, more so than for his image. And you can tell that Brian and Logan had some conversations off camera as well. Warmed Brian a lot more to him, given the reaction that he had to what he did. Brian warming to him does sort of give a sign of legitimacy about the whole situation. So, the first Logan KSI fight ends in a draw. So what do we get now? Logan Paul KSI 2. And this PR tour went a lot better than the first one. The first one he stumbled over every single block that he hit. The fight itself, I mean, wasn't anything special the first time around, but this time Logan was on top form, and realistically I think it was because he had a lot less weighing him down. It did get to the fight and he did lose, and to be fair, he did deserve to lose. I mean, he lost because of his own mistakes, and that's not to sort of take back anything from KSI's win. JJ definitely put in the hours and earned his victory. If JJ didn't deserve the victory, those 2 points wouldn't have made a difference when you think about it. But again, if it wasn't for those 2 points, it would have been Logan's fight to win. So, I mean, he was in much better form at that stage. And realistically, it's down to another thing, Mike and Impulsive. So during Logan's early years, it's pretty clear to see that he had a lot of yes men about him. A lot of the content he released wouldn't have been able to be released if he had people around him with any common sense. I had to look through it all. Trust me, no one with a brain would have allowed that. But Impulsive gives us a sort of better look into Logan as a person and his relationship with his co-host, Mike. And to be honest, Mike seems to have a good head on his shoulders. He interjects when needed. He tells Logan to shut up, which in 2017 I probably couldn't have seen happening, at least with any degree of success. So I didn't really start watching Logan Paul until very recently. I assumed that his content was for children, and I didn't really follow the guy that much, to be honest. I kept up with him here and there when someone made a video, but not his videos specifically. But on Twitter, I seen the BLM speech that he made on his podcast, and it was fairly mature. The way he went about the BLM protests lies directly in the face of the way that his brother went about it. And his brother is a really, really good sort of benchmark for Logan's growth, because they started in the same place. So when you compare the two of them, it really becomes apparent as to how much of a different character he is now to what he was. That being said, when Jake is around him, he does sort of revert back to that sort of Jack the Lad Forest Logan. But to be honest, I think that happens with anyone around their family. And even then, Mike still falls in as the voice of reason and sets him straight on the podcast. Even his vlogs have become more mature. He knows for a fact that a child audience isn't going to be consistent, and having that more adult audience allows him to sort of bring out more of his own personality and his good sides. He still slips up here and there, but pretty sure every YouTuber slips up here and there. Every person slips up here and there. So yes, as I said, Jake is a good benchmark for Logan's improvement. And I don't think Jake will improve until he gets his own Forest incident. Although very recently, he did get that break-in into his house, the raid, and all of the looting that he did during the protests. So who knows, maybe he just won't improve as a person. I don't know, I've got hope for everyone. Anyone can really change when you think about it. So, we have his introduction. He's playing up to the villain role. He's just a massive, massive douchebag. Then he gets his snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. And slowly works his way up to being the hero of his own story. He didn't win in the end against KSI, but he didn't need to. I would honestly say to any writer, look at the character arc that Logan Pauls went on for a good redemption arc. I mean, it's Zuko levels of quality. It's chef's kiss. So the moral of this video is probably don't judge people for their worst mistakes, but judge them for how they go about amending them. And I would say that Logan sort of nailed it in the best way you possibly could with the situation he was in. Now, thank you all for making it this far in the video if you have. Again, this is a fun video to make. Bit of a nightmare to research. I did have to watch some of Jake Paul's videos. That wasn't fun. That was not fun. And Logan's earlier videos, but his newer stuff's fairly enjoyable. Didn't really feel like research, to be honest. It was interesting going over everything and sort of looking at how the past load of years have shaped an individual. YouTube's a very weird situation where you get to see that type of growth in a person and you can look back on it. So if you enjoyed the video, again, don't forget to like and subscribe to see more from me. If you didn't like the video, leave me a comment telling me why, and leave a dislike. I mean, you can do that, that's your choice. Of course, do leave in the comments what more you want to see from my channel, any criticisms you might have, any suggestions for the channel going forward. We're picking up a bit of steam. We're at like 344 subs or something. Pretty nifty cool. I'm also streaming over on my Twitch, Pokemon Platinum Nuzlocke, and streaming the Minecraft SMP sim with a load of other creators: Marley Schwarb, Silver, Louis Shap, Captain Ockboder. It's a good wee crowd. So yeah, follow me over there. All my socials are linked below. Instagram, Twitter, both of my socials are linked below. And as always, my name's Connell, this is the Utanium, and see ya.